You might think that running is simple and wouldn't require a lot of specialty gear. After all, it's a pretty simple sport. In ancient Greece, the athletes ran barefoot and naked. This is frowned upon in Rochester. People really get bent out of shape if you run barefooted. Now, it is a better idea to wear shoes and clothes. Here are my recommendations, starting with summertime clothing. We might as well start with the shoes. Running shoes are built differently for people with different shapes of feet and for different needs. Some people need motion control, some need cushioning, and some need some stability. If people are going to train seriously, they should visit a specialty running shop like the Running Room downtown and get a gait analysis. And that gait analysis will tell you what kind of shoe that you need. At the very least, people should get a shoe that fits them comfortably. Unless someone is jejune, a crazy college kid, or an ancient Greek, you probably want a pair of shorts. These are mine, in splendid German colors. Notice that they're called shorts. I am a child of the 70s, and I want nothing to do with today's so-called shorts that go all the way to the knee. When it comes to shorts, find something that's comfortable and keeps you legal. Socks should be smooth and soft. I like smart wool socks. I actually like a little thicker smart wool socks. The plan here is to avoid blisters, although my wife Jody is fond of saying, nobody ever died of a blister. I recommend shirts that are light and made of a technical fabric that dries quickly. Luckily, every time I finish a marathon, I get a free shirt. And it only costs me $100 to enter the race. Avoid cotton t-shirts whenever possible. They just get wet and they don't keep you cool. Now, you might also notice that I pay a lot of attention to being color coordinated. I'm very fashion conscious. Right now, it's beautiful to run outside. It's the right temperature, and it's light in the morning. But that doesn't last, and winter can come in Minnesota at any time. So now we'll talk about wintertime clothing. It's not necessary to wear a lot of heavy clothes when you run, because running will keep us warm. I wear a jacket and pants that come from Sport Hill, and this is my only outer layer. It's windproof, and it wicks moisture away from the body. When it gets below 20 degrees, I wear a pair of tights. And for those of you not originally from Minnesota, we're talking Fahrenheit here. When it gets down into the single digits, then I put on the Sport Hill. And if it gets way below zero, I'll put on an Under Armour shirt. Again, I don't have to wear a lot of clothes out there. But when it's maybe less than minus 20 or the wind chill gets really serious, then a face mask is a good idea. You might notice my black color pattern on my outdoor clothing. My neighbors sometimes wonder if there's a ninja running outside in that blizzard. I wear different gloves and mittens depending on the temperature. I only wear gloves down to about 20 because mittens will keep me warmer after that because it keeps my fingers together. So below 20, I wear these choppers. Again, high fashion. When it gets below zero, then I'll put on these heavy fleece mittens. But if it's above zero, it's way too hot to wear these. In addition to the face mask, I'll often wear the stocking cap. Now the blaze orange cuts down on the ninja effect and makes me a little more visible. Those are the essentials. Now let's talk about some nice to haves. When the temperature or wind chill again gets below minus 20, it's nice to have a pair of goggles. That keeps my eyelashes from freezing shut. And a breathable raincoat is nice on those mornings when it's raining outside at 4 a.m. and I know I have to go out there. On those same rainy days, it's nice to have a cap to keep the rain out of my eyes and out of my face. And on the rare bright sunny day, I wear a pair of light sunglasses. The well-dressed runner isn't finished yet. He or she needs some equipment too. Let's start with safety equipment. My wife and I usually run in the darkness before sunrise, except for this time of year when we have glorious sunrises. We need reflection and lights. And the cars don't always pay attention to us. So we need to run against the traffic, facing the traffic, and keep an eye on the cars. We've had people veer onto the shoulder when they're driving past us, and we have to head for the ditch. And in fact, a couple of years ago, we had a guy that would intentionally drive on the white line and force us into the ditch. He'd be looking at us and doing this as he drove right past us. And he only stopped the day I started carrying my phone in order to film him doing this. I never saw him again. Seriously, though, this is my opportunity to say that cyclists and runners would appreciate the extra room on the road, to give them just a little extra space. Another safety item is a water bottle or two. It's important to stay hydrated. And when I go on a long run, I'll sometimes stash 4 or 5 water bottles along the route the night before so that I can just have water ready whenever I get there. It's not really littering, at least only temporarily. My wife Jody carries pepper spray for dogs. Now, I was originally writing this speech back in 2014, and I was kind of composing this speech in my head on a long run. I was thinking, do I want to mention pepper spray? I've been running for 32 years and I've never been bitten by a dog. A half mile later, a chocolate lab bit me twice. I'm still reconsidering the pepper spray. Now, training for marathons requires some specialty gear. A GPS gadget like this Garmin watch lets me track my distance and time and pace, and it frees me from running on only marked trails. I can go anywhere with this thing and still get my distance in. Glide prevents chafing. It's a expensive and less slimy alternative to Vaseline. And finally, even though they are technically edible, I really couldn't bring myself to put gel packs into the nutrition category. Only a desperate, calorie-deprived marathon runner, would consider them food. Gel packs are basically sodium, sugar, and caffeine. They're easily digestible and they're designed to prevent you from hitting the wall at 20 miles. They are the consistency of silicone caulk, but not as tasty. They come in many gag-inducing flavors. The equipment category also has some nice-to-haves. It's nice to have a log to keep track of all your different runs, if you're very organized like my wife. It's also possible to find many running apps on your phone that you can track your runs and share them with your friends. The final category is supplies, where I will impart my extensive and complicated medical and nutritional advice. Most runners will have a supply of Band-Aids to prevent, for blister management. Now, I put my Band-Aids on a couple of my particular toes before every long run to prevent blisters. My wife puts Band-Aids on all of her blisters after her long runs. The rest of my medical advice is to have some Aleve handy after a nice long run. And finally, my nutritional advice is even more comprehensive. Here it is. Eat sensibly, but treat yourself after a long run, especially after a long race. Because there's really only 2 reasons that anybody runs a marathon. Mr. Toastmaster.